AAA gaming bubble has popped. I am not convinced this is happening yet because there are so many games that that are trying to sell their shit for $130. I remember when the premium deluxe edition for a game was like $80, and then the collector's edition was like $200. I don't get it.
This video is brought to you by Incog. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they're providing to the entire Echelon community. Alright, so for years now, like 7 or 8 years actually, I've complained about the relative quality standards for AAA gaming across many
Suicide
different genres.
Squad?
But today, after a series of high-profile failures, stock price fluctuations, revenue downgrades, and now a very interesting analyst report about the state of video games in 2025, I want to make the argument that the quality isn't just bad, with major publishers chasing all the wrong trends. I want to make a case that the bubble itself has actually burst. It's a prediction, obviously, and I could be wrong, of course, but my view is that the overarching trends of the AAA video game market have...
Wouldn't, if the bubble popped, like, right now, wouldn't we already be seeing what's happening? Because I feel like if... I don't know, I'll let him...
Finally reached a sort of inflection point where the unsustainable nature of their choices are now fully untenable. The way that these companies develop, market, and release major franchise titles no longer works, and the severity of failure that we see from major industry players will either dramatically increase or the entire ethos of their publishing structure will necessarily change. To make the case, I'm going to use roughly 5 different primary examples spread across 4 different major publishers, those being Sony, Ubisoft, Warner Brothers, and EA, Electronic Arts, concluding with a hilariously out-of-touch analyst report indicating that what game makers appear to be hoping for is a normalization of higher price tags in an industry where the product that you get isn't even a product, often gets shut down, and never deserved the price tag it had in the first place. In summary,
we literally just talked about it. $90 for early access. Just to get people's FOMO for like 5 days. You get 5 or 7 days early access for Civ 7. For $100. Isn't that disgusting?
The AAA video game industry bubble has popped, in my view. Let's start with this. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I've talked about this one before, so I'll be quick here. But Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is an abject live service failure. Developed by Rocksteady under Warner Brothers as their publisher, the game utilized extremely well-known brand IP, which is a bit of a theme for the video. However, the final product was completely uninteresting. In terms of player traction, the game was an abject failure, and it wasn't long until Rocksteady announced that there would be no more future content ever developed.
You know what's a bummer is that I thought about comparing it for a moment to like Hollywood and AAA, not AAA, to Hollywood and massive studios, and how bad the movies are now compared to, and how recycled and regurgitated they are, and they just don't look good and feel good. And then I thought about it and I'm like, wait a minute, Lion King in 3D made so much fucking money. People did not care. This is different. They're not making money. They're losing money on this. So I don't know. I don't know what I could compare it to.
In mind, the whole point of a live service game is the future content.
Maybe
because
they
major
will
publishers
pop,
identified that a season pass kind of structure allowed them better ongoing monetization. That is, better monetization if you have a player base. For Suicide Squad, there was no player base, which led to the game being directly cited in the Warner Brothers first quarter 2024 earnings call as a primary factor behind a $200 million revenue drop for the company compared to 1 year.
That sucks. They had a massive success with Hogwarts Legacy, and then they pissed it all away with Suicide Squad.
Prior. I'm not entirely sure how much the game originally cost to make, but whatever the development price tag was, it was an example of shipping something that the players do not want. What's next? Well, next I want to talk about Ubisoft, because Ubisoft is probably the best example you could possibly ask for when it comes to failure in all of video game publishing. Setting aside the fact that the company's stock price has declined by like 90% since 2021 highs, and brushing past the part where they release blatantly mediocre products like Skull and Bones, with the sheer hubris to then say it's some sort of quadruple A video game, Ubisoft has had a different project as well called...
Unless we forget taking money from the Singapore government that they have to pay back somehow. I don't know how they're staying afloat. There's something going on, man, that my little fox brain does not understand. Yeah, I don't know how they're staying afloat. They owe so much money.
X-Defiant. X-Defiant, a first-person shooter that blends all sorts of different Ubisoft intellectual property together under one roof, wasn't even all that bad. But as a live service arena shooter, it was also just more of the same. It had players, sure, some of them, but not enough, at least not for Ubisoft. So in December of 2024, the announcement came through, X-Defiant would be discontinued from development. Now,
I completely forgot about this. This died like instantly. Yeah, the free-to-play shooter.
One of the
I remember someone talking about
defenses
that
that
a while
publishers
ago.
have often relied on for years now, justifying why it's okay to release broken, unfinished products that lack any sort of innovative or deserving content for the initial price tag, unless they're free to play.
Yeah, the COD killer.
It's because live service apparently means you'll get more.
There's a reason there's no COD killers, man. COD consumes all.
More later on. But what happens if later never comes? Hopefully the pattern is beginning to emerge. If it isn't, don't worry, because there's plenty more examples to draw from, such as Concord. Now, as a side note here, some people like to make broad sweeping accusations that some or all of these games failed because they're, quote, woke, unquote. But for me, that seems like a bit of a self-serving exaggeration in a lot of cases. Maybe that was a factor for some people, but these games failed because they didn't provide anything worth playing. They weren't necessarily bad games, but tell me why someone should play the game.
I saw the gameplay videos by Fleekazoid. The game is really bad. It feels awful. You can't run. It's slow as fuck. The backgrounds, the actual designs for the platforms is just awful. I don't know.
In the background right now, when Overwatch exists, or Deadlock, or Valorant, or any number of other hero shooter type games.
This looks so bad.
You can't, because it doesn't bring anything valuable to the table. The thing is, that wouldn't necessarily matter if Concord wasn't a $100 million product that supposedly took 8 years to make. And just a few weeks after it finally came out, the game gets shut down. Because Sony had made a product that the market didn't want, yet again. And thus it was an unmitigated...
So they started making the game when Overwatch came out and thought that that Overwatch would last forever. Yeah, they thought that they could, like, take the market from them. It's mind-blowing, genuinely mind-blowing to me.
Again, a lot of people like to claim that Concord failed because of contemporary politics. But for me, it just seems more like the wrong product at the wrong time.
It just sucked.
Which is kind of becoming a...
The one thing that was quote-unquote DEI related was the whole pronoun shit on the character screen, and even then people didn't even roast it that badly. That was like a tiny little coconut sprinkle in a massive shit pie sundae. That everything else was so much fucking worse and so much funnier. The fucking pronouns on the trash can, that was just funny, man. The designs were bad, the voice acting, the gameplay, like, oh my gosh.
In the live service industry. Did somebody say data? Speaking of data, which is the new gold, today's video is made possible by Incog, which is an online privacy and data protection service.
Data!
Everybody wants your data, and to be brutally honest right now, pretty much everybody already has it. It's worth money, obviously. They sell it, they train machine learning models on it, and the result is that you suffer from the downstream impacts of whatever they decide to do with it, like spam phone calls, emails, junk mail, or text messages that become extremely common if your phone number, for example, gets sold out to a list of telemarketing companies. Most people are completely careless with their information, such as agreeing immediately when faced with data sharing policies on various websites or click-through agreements, but for everyday users, it's not really possible to fight back once it happens, and it does happen. There are hundreds of these data brokers. Luckily, Incog is designed to help you with this. I've used it myself, I paid for the service, as I do with all channel sponsors. As a result, I'm happy to recommend them. The process is very easy. Sign up for the website, give them legal permission to work on your behalf, and let them know what specific information they'll be having removed. After that, they go to work, and that's it. Aggregating the service lets them streamline the process, and you'll see results pretty much immediately. Less data brokers and third-party marketing companies selling your
but then
information
who
means less
owns
junk
that
mail,
info
spam, text
from
messages,
you?
phone calls, and a host of other issues that come with big businesses that you don't know about.
Yeah, who watches
and
the Watchmen
they don't care
chat?
about you having and monetizing your personal information. Using the link down below in the description and code Echelon at checkout, you can get 60% off an annual subscription to Incog. Again, link down below and promo code Echelon for 60% off your subscription. Big thank you to Incog for sponsoring the channel. Back to it. What comes next? Well, next is an interesting one from Electronic Arts, this time called Dragon Age The Veilguard.
Oh my god,
because
this looks so bad.
This is where I want to talk about realistic goals. Dragon Age Veilguard, in my opinion at least, is just a straight up bad game. It's a betrayal of the original Dragon Age atmosphere. It's boring, it's arcadey, it's super cringe all the way through, and it's just not worth playing.
Valid.
However, the game apparently sold 1.5 million copies. According to the preliminary third quarter financials published by EA themselves, the game, quote, engaged approximately 1.5 million players during the quarter, down nearly 50% from the company's expectations, end quote, which contributed...
That's 1.5 million players, and a bunch of people get it for free, too. Yeah, not good.
...to a downward revision of their revenue targets, which in turn led to a massive decrease in their share price. Here's the kicker.
EA is still alive? Yeah, because they're making Sims for white women. Lonely white women with 10 cats. They have to sell them DLC for like $40 a pop. That's where they're making all their money from, man. Why are you surprised? Oh, and FIFA. Yeah, you're right. FIFA. Chat, I might have sailed the 7 seas during a depressive stage, and I sailed the 7 seas and got every single DLC and played the shit out of it for 3 weeks, and then I uninstalled it and never played again. It was great. It was actually amazing. Having all the fucking DLC was great. Didn't pay a penny, by the way. It would have cost me thousands of dollars. But anyway. White women love Sims, man, chat. I can't even begin to describe it to you.
Dragon Age Veilguard isn't a live service product.
Yep.
It's purely single player. But it used to be a live service, getting rebooted in 2021, 6 years after development started, as if you could possibly waste any more resources on a title like this, because EA got cold feet. That's a big deal, at least in my opinion, because pretty much everyone who played or especially reviewed the game commented...
6 years for Dragon Age The Veilguard? How long does it take to finish it? Dragon Age The Veilguard playtime. 50 to 70 hours? 60? 6 years for 50 to 70 hours? Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't translate to, like, the efficiency. Yeah.
On the fact that it still kind of felt like a live service, which
Not
leaves
great.
us in a really odd situation where 1.5 million players is somehow colossally disappointing. In a vacuum, 1.5 million sales of practically anything would be amazing. But when you spend 9 years making it, essentially making it twice at that, if you think about the reboot, and God knows how much more on just a bloated marketing budget, suddenly an objectively successful product by itself becomes an alarming failure after wasting however many tens or hundreds of millions of dollars making it. It's funny, or sad maybe, because not all studios are equal in this regard. Despite what I may think of Naughty Dog on a personal level, in 2023, they actually canceled a live service project called Last of Us Online. To be completely honest.
Do you want to know why they did that? It's not because they wanted to cancel the live service. They realized Last of Us doesn't actually make a lot of money. It is not as popular of a franchise as it wasn't back in like 2018, man.
That's one of the few
it's just
live
not
service
worth
products
it.
out there that I would have wanted to see completed. But the point is, they rightly identified that allocating all of their resources to this one project
Last of Us 2 didn't do great.
From their official announcement, quote, in ramping up to full production, the massive scope of our ambition became clear. To release and support The Last of Us Online, we'd have to put all of our studio resources behind supporting post-launch content for years to come, severely impacting development on future single-player games. So we had two paths in front of us: become a solely live service game studio, or continue to focus on single-player narrative games that have defined Naughty Dog's heritage, end quote. Like it or not, that is extremely self-aware, especially when you consider the fact that live service games...
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I'm not 100% convinced. I think it has something to do with Last of Us 2 flopping pretty hard. Like, yeah, it was a big game and it had big boots to fill, but it just didn't do that great. Yeah, people can say it's like a monumental success. I don't think so.
Game failures have been outright
Last of Us 1 was
studios left and right for the past couple of years. But let's tie everything together now, because the exact tipping point where live services become a liability rather than a predictable payday is the exact point in time where the AAA video game bubble officially popped. Why do I say that? Well, honestly, it's actually very simple. Anyone who pays attention to the mainstream video game market has likely felt the animosity building. Players are sick of the format. Selling something shitty and promising to fix it later just isn't a respectable business model. But
I saw through that when I was playing World of Warcraft back in 2015 and 2016, when they would release patches for raids, and the raids were literally unplayable on launch on the day after beta testing and alpha testing, and then they would say, oh, we're gonna fix it in the next patch, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna fix it in the next patch, and also there's a new patch coming out, so there's gonna be even more to fix. I strode through that shit 10 years ago almost, chat. I'm a gamer boomer, man.
Even more importantly, selling something for $60 or $70 and then selling $80 or $100 worth of season passes and micro DLC and premium currency as
Blizzard
you
wishes they could do that,
drag
man.
your feet and sort of make it a good product over the span of 2 years. That's not any better at all. Mm-hmm. Compounding that problem is that these bloated, greedy companies have been monetizing so effectively with that strategy, their baseline profit levels are now completely unrealistic. Live services became effectively ubiquitous in the AAA video game market, and they've been making a whole lot more money releasing unfinished trash than they used to make when they were focusing on legitimate, deserving, and fully finished games. Now for the capstone, though. According to a report from Echelon by Matthew Ball, which is an investment and strategic advisor.
Matthew Ball. I'm sorry, Matt. I'm not laughing at you. I'm not laughing at your whatever this is, but Matthew Ball, that's actually such a good name. Yo, Mr. Ball, how's it going?
Service, I guess. All the way down
Mr.
on page
Ball.
216, I think, of the presentation, we find this, quote, in 2025, GTA 6's impact on industry playtime and spend will be mixed as it launches console only and severely cannibal.
God, that's gonna suck so much ass. I don't wanna fucking buy a PlayStation or whatever, man. I don't wanna.
Cannibalizes hours/spend on other titles. Further down, but some game makers hope GTA 6 will be priced at $80 to $100, breaking the $70
Holy
barrier
frick, man.
and helping $50 titles move up to $60, $60 to do $70, $70 to $80, etc.
People are just gonna stop buying it, man. Bro, I remember I had a Brazilian friend a long time ago, and I said, hey, are you gonna play this game? And she said, no, sorry, Alana, I can't play. Oh, it was an expansion for World of Warcraft. They said, sorry, Alana, I can't play the new expansion because it literally cost me like 3 days worth of work to like buy the game, and I can't do that because it's too much money. Yeah, it's either GTA 6 or groceries, and we're joking about that, but a lot of countries and a lot of people that don't live in America, and even most Americans, can't afford to do that shit.
He goes on to talk about how prices have never been lower in real terms than they are today.
Yeah,
there's a reason for that, and they should be this low because when you make the shift from physical to digital, and then you go to your own proprietary storefront and you harvest more of the revenue, you're basically earning more despite the fact that there's inflation. So there's no excuse for raising the prices of video games is what I'm saying. But that's a whole separate video I've done in the past. Anyway, I find that
video games are a luxury. I don't care what anyone says. If you start pushing the people out of the market, you will... Like, people can't afford it. That's why there's certain hobbies that are super niche. Even something like buying packs for like collectors and stuff, for card games, they are pretty expensive, man. Yeah, Warhammer 40k, figurines, buying figurines of anime characters, they can be quite expensive, man. People don't really do that very often.
This to be a perfect indication that the bubble
or they're
has
not
already...
serious collectors.
See, GTA 6 costing $100 in a vacuum is most likely perfectly fine. A game of that scale with the track record that Rockstar has, GTA 5, Red Dead 2, etc. Yeah.
Hobbies are expensive usually. I disagree. I don't think hobbies are expensive. Some hobbies are expensive, but if video games become so expensive that they become one of the more expensive hobbies, I don't think that the customer base will be happy with it and they will leave in droves. Again, that's why people buy consoles, because PCs are expensive. That's the drive for the console market. It's essentially, I'm dumbing it down a lot, but it is the reason why it is.
$100 might just be pennies per hour of entertainment, beating out most, if not all, other contemporary releases. However, the broader market, yeah, they do not deserve that money. Major gaming publishers have been releasing absolute garbage, often so bad it gets canceled, recalled, or shelved within months.
I'll make another point, is that back in the day, buying a console was expensive because it was a very new technology and people realized that it was expensive, and then eventually it started becoming cheap by the 2000s, or at least semi-affordable for the average family, or at least American family, from what I understand. Now we're doing the inverse, where they're trying to push the customer into paying for it because they love video games so much that there's a massive player base now that they're eating themselves, essentially. They want to see how far they can push that base into like, hey, do I really need to buy groceries, or do I want to play the new game?
They over-monetize that garbage, and when faced with a situation where the business model of live service is faltering, raising the prices on your customers to make up the shortfall of your own habitual failure isn't the solution. It's like the Titanic, but imagine if the captain grabbed the wheel and just steered it full tilt right into the iceberg, because
That's what McDonald's does too. They try to justify the reduced amount of people going to McDonald's from the last like 5 years due to COVID and like people not going outside as much. They try to chalk it up to inflation and that they're losing money. I've read some articles talking about it. They'll never admit it, but that's essentially what they're doing. They're like, oh, well, you know, the food is still dog shit, and the food is still dog shit, and we're providing a service that's been the same for the last 20 years, so we gotta increase it by at least another $1 to 60 cents every fucking 5 months.
It's too stupid to realize that the ice doesn't give a shit how fancy the rich people's boat is. The AAA gaming bubble already popped because they've been squeezing their audience with scumbag tactics and trash tier products for years with no backup plan. Remember, there's an imperative here from the shareholders that they continue to make more money every single quarter like clockwork without fail. More, never less, not even the same. Has to be more or it's failure. And if they don't do that, they get removed as leadership, right? That's when you see the CEO get purged or a new CTO or whatever, right? The board of directors becomes unhappy.
And nothing ever changes either. What happens when you can't
make more money? Because no one wants what you're making, and what you were making was already so hyper-calibrated to steal as much as you could get from the customers without deserving that money because you didn't make something that actually deserved the price tag. No version of reputable game ever will make up the difference to that. That's how a bubble pops, obviously, because you can't go up anymore. You destroy.
The other thing is that video game making is also extremely expensive and time consuming. You need to put in a lot of love, and you can't quantify a love for a game into numbers. World of Warcraft costed a lot of money to develop, but there was also an insane amount of love and talent getting put into it through like artists and like music design and sound design and UI design and whatever. Now we're paying people like dog shit and people aren't happy with the product, and I feel like the scales are tipping where you used to say, oh, I work for Blizzard, I get paid like shit as a game developer or an artist or a composer, but at least I have the badge of making something amazing. Now people don't feel that way anymore. If you were associated with Dragon Age the Veilguard, you are not getting a standing ovation for making the game. People don't fucking give a fuck.
Your own credibility to a degree where you can only go down.
It's so sad.
Everyone's felt what I'm talking about.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think you should be paid like shit for making an amazing game. I do think that you should be paid what you're worth. I'm just saying that people are very unhappy within Blizzard, that I've heard through the grapevines, that now it's not like considered a massive prestigious, like, there's controversy around Blizzard now after all the failed games they've pumped out and like whatever and all the lawsuits and all that shit.
Here, if we're totally honest with each other, games are just shit nowadays.
True.
Yeah, there's highlights, good ones here and there, and indie games that go above and beyond. Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
But the AAA video game market is rightfully falling apart, in my view, because they just don't do good work anymore. They got lazy, they got greedy, they prioritize marketing and live service products above innovation, and it's completely disconnected. It's a bunch of people in suits that think like, oh, if we change the price tag, it's going to fix the problem where we're only getting 1.5 million copies sold.
Only 1.5.
Make a good game. Don't make cartoony, arcadey garbage that betrays the franchise history. Like, stop. It's insane to me. Eventually, the cycle comes crashing down on their heads, which I believe is now imminently happening, especially if they try to raise the prices. That is the most comedic thing about all of this. Raising prices on the same live service slop that the community is already openly rejecting doesn't save your business. It accelerates the pop of the bubble, which I think is here, and I'm not even slightly sad about it. Major publishers many years ago, identified that they could sell half-finished bullshit and monetize it every step of the way. Over time, people got sick of it, the market is crowded, the innovation is gone, and people are now much more risk-averse when it comes to buying something that might...
Oversaturation happens in every field. If you are an old school, like say like 3 to 4 years ago, you started watching VTubers, for example, do you feel like the market is rather oversaturated? I felt like that going in about 2 years ago. I thought that I was already at the point where it was getting saturated. Now it's so oversaturated. Like, it is massive now. So, like, I can understand when people see a winning formula in video games, they're like, oh, I can release early access for $80, $90? And I can give them a half-baked beta version of the game and then tell them we're gonna patch it on release day? And then I still get all the money from the people that will play at launch instead of the early access 5 days earlier? Oh, that's so awesome! Oh, so yummy!
Big air quotes, get better money over time. Customer mentality changes. It's an ebb and flow, right? There's tides there. But what does not change are the greedy expectations of publishing companies, leaving them in a situation of their own design, by the way, where they can't make the money that they're expected to make, which leads, inexorably, to a crash. The AAA gaming bubble, as a result of live service fixation, has popped. That's it. If you want
Blizzard started laying off people. I think the biggest Blizzard layoff that happened back in the day was during WoD or Legion, where they cut off 800 employees and nothing really happened. Yeah, it's just like... I don't know, maybe I'm a pessimist and I'm like the inverse of a pessimist, like he's happy that it might crash down. I don't know if it'll happen. Maybe I'll eat my words.
Support the channel, check out the links down below. Video sponsor, of course, Incog, Locals and Patreon for monthly subscriptions, channel memberships, merchandise, etc., a whole bunch of stuff. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching. Question everything, and have a nice night.
Strong. I get sad looking at Veilguard. This is really how Dragon Age dies. This is the final entry. They killed an absolutely insanely beloved franchise, and now you will never see it again. No, because they will take this as a failure and be like, all right, Dragon Age, you fucking suck, the lore sucks, or whatever, and just dismiss it as, like, chuds hating Dragon Age. And that's not the market. Like, Saints Row was also a really big franchise. That someone brought it up. Saints Row, I played 2, 3, and 4. I did not like 4 as much as 3 and 2. 3 was my favorite because it was, like, insanely wacky. But, like, it really devolved. It really did. It became such a shit show by, like, 4, I think. It was still kind of fun, but it just kind of lost its pep. Saints Row 4 was supposed to be DLC on 3. Yes, it genuinely feels like it was supposed to be DLC for 3, and they ran out of time, or they just didn't want to go through with it. I totally, completely agree. It felt kind of like half botched, and I remember I was trying to run it on my PC at the time, and it was just so badly optimized at launch. I remember so distinctly. It kept crashing and shit. It was so annoying.